Morning, everyone. This is an unexpected twist. Who could have imagined 2020 would have an interlude of a full Footloose experience? It's like virtual reality, but better. Here's City News reporting, no singing or dancing allowed as Ontario reopens restaurant patios. That's the gist of the message coming from the provincial government, which has included explicit bans on singing and even dancing in parts of its plan to reopen businesses temporarily shuttered by the deadly outbreak. Stage 2 of Ontario's economic recovery plan contains numerous guidance documents for sectors cleared to resume or expand their operations. The guidance prepared for restaurants and bars states that both singing and dancing are banned in the outdoor seated areas where customers are currently allowed to gather in limited numbers. Don't you jitterbug to your table. Don't you do it. I swear. I'll kick you right out. Documents state singing is also banned in childcare settings and discouraged in places of worship that were given the green light to open the door across Ontario last week. So, I mean, if the baby's crying, you gotta hum. It is what it is, right? You gotta obey the rules. I scroll down a little bit. Quote, we've acknowledged in our communication with parishioners that some of what we're asking is uncomfortable or awkward, but we're doing it out of love and concern for our neighbor, McCarthy said. If we want to be able to have churches open, then these are the restrictions that we need to employ. James Rillette, Restaurant Canada's Central Regional Vice President, also didn't question the government's instructions. I think it's interesting. Like, this is the reason I'm reading this is because the newspaper is including this to say, see, your neighbors don't mind. See, we have to do this, and here's some experts who agree we have to do this. But the experts are just business people like you and I, or regular everyday people who happen to be in positions of power, like a church, somebody who communicates with church people, and the restaurant vice president, right? Like the regional vice president. These aren't elected positions of power or anything like that. It's just your job, right? Anyway, back to this. Quote, live dancing and music may be something that we look to revisit once Ontario is further along with easing emergency health and safety measures, but for now, this restriction will not hinder reopening plans. They say a lot in this article as well that science backs this up, but that means very little in this day and age, in my opinion. Here's a quick interlude from Footloose. 2011.
Dancing is against the law.
Yeah, man, look, we got laws of the poop shoot around here. You know, I can't even bring a bandana to school because they think I'm in a gang. If my face gets all sweaty, I gotta use the back of my hand. And let me tell you something, this country was built on bandanas.
So, you're telling me Beaumont High doesn't have a prom?
Well, you know, they got the fall ball, right? Okay, so all the churches get together, put it on, the whole town shows up, and everybody's eyes are on you to make sure you're dancing at least 6 inches away from your girl.
Hey, you gotta add another 2 inches for me, though.
And for one song, they make you dance with your mother. I mean, talk about a boner killer.
Man, right? There's a lot to unpack in that scene, that less than a minute scene from a 2013 movie. This nation was built on bandanas, 6 inches apart, and another 2 for the black guy, right? And that was the implication, right? That's what he said. Here's a flashback to the 1984 clip. I think that the reliance on God to prove his point proves another point in 2020. Take it away, Kevin Bacon.
From the oldest of times, people danced for a number of reasons. They danced in prayer, or so that their crops would be plentiful, or so their hunt would be good. And they danced to stay physically fit and show their community spirit. And they danced to celebrate. And that is the dancing that we're talking about. Yeah. Aren't we told in Psalm 149? Praise ye the Lord. Sing unto the Lord a new song. Let them praise his name in the dance.
Amen. Amen.
And it was King David. King David, who we read about in Samuel. And what did David do? What did David do? What did David do? David danced before the Lord with all his might. Leaping and dancing before the Lord. Leaping and dancing.
Leaping and dancing, but not in Toronto, not right now anyway. So, I mean, yeah, why not have a little Footloose in 2020, right? Let's do the draconian laws. Are we going to find our Kevin Bacon? Maybe Doug Ford will dance it out in front of the Toronto sign. I don't know. Who knows? Black Lives Matter. I came across this morning. This was an interesting little piece of footage. And sorry for the over-reliance on video this morning, but I just... Sometimes the world is just parody. And you need to just remember that at one time, everybody in like across the United States and Canada related with that movie, related with that scene. They were like, yeah. And David said, dance to the Lord, or whatever he just said. And now that's not true. That's not true. There's a big fracturing, right? It's at some point that spoke to a large group of people, right? And now I don't know. Here is Black Lives Matter's link to Hamas. I wanted to find footage from this conference. I found an article. This is from 2016. We're going to go through this. And so to get serious now, here we go. Here's a quick excerpt from the conference that's referenced in this news article. And that's not Footloose. Okay, here we go.
Turn your centers, Islamic centers, mosques, into registration centers for voters. Black Lives Matter is our matter.
What?
Black Lives Matter is our campaign.
What?
Basically, you are the new black people of America. If we don't stand, you will see Muslims murdered in the streets. We are the community that staged a revolution across the world. If we could do that, why can't we have that revolution in America?
So that's interesting. So I started looking for the links to back that up. Because, people can make videos that are fake. Fake videos exist. Fake news exists all the time, right? Here's Town Hall. And link is in the description if you want to read more of this. Black Lives Matter and History of Islamist Outreach to African Americans. Once the dust settled last week's protest of a Donald Trump rally in Chicago demonstrated a growing nexus between Islamic groups in the United States and the radical left Black Lives Matter movement. The rhetoric of unity between these movements was clearly on display at the 2015 joint conference of the 2015 Muslim American Society, MAS, and the Islamic Circle of North America, ICNA. MAS was described by federal prosecutors as the overt arm of the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood, and ICNA is recognized as the front for the Pakistani Islamist group Jamaat-e-Islami, I think, JEL, founded by one of the foremost thinkers on modern jihad, Syed Abdul al-Mududi. I believe that's how you say that. And yeah, really, I think so. Okay, at the event, MAS leader Khalil Sabra openly discussed the importance of Muslim support of Black Lives Matter and urged revolution. Comparing the situation in the United States to the Muslim Brotherhood-led Arab Spring Revolution, she asked, "We are the community that staged a revolution across the world. If we can do that, why can't we have that revolution in America?" Reporting on this merging revolutionary alliance goes back as far as the first outbreak of disorder in Ferguson. Few may recall the attendance at Michael Brown's funeral of CARE Executive Director Nihad Awad. Awad was identified in federal court as a member of the Palestine Committee, a covert group of Muslim brothers dedicated to supporting Hamas in the United States. So it's a tangled web, and it's more complicated than just that. I'm just giving you the 30,000-yard view, but if Black Lives Matter is being fostered by the Muslim Brotherhood, what is going on? So by extension, Black Lives Matter, supported by the Muslim Brotherhood, has annexed the autonomous zone in Seattle. That seems like some post-apocalyptic kind of sci-fi, especially when you throw in Donald Trump as the president, right? It's like watching The Fifth Element, but Donald Trump is the president. These are public ties that should be paid attention to, and it doesn't seem like anybody's really drawn this connection to the current protests and the current unrest. And I mean, they should. This is public, right? This is public. Moving closer to home, here's Yves Francois Blanchet, and Mr. Blanchet is the leader of the Bloc Québécois, and he holds the balance of power, or one of the balance of power, in the House of Commons. And if Justin Trudeau wants to pass legislation, he needs support of one of the minority parties. The Conservatives aren't likely to support them. They have 125 seats. maybe 121. But regardless, they have not a majority and not enough to overturn the Liberals. And when you get either the NDP or the Bloc Québécois to vote for your policy, you essentially have enough to pass the policy. So Mr. Trudeau can understand this, and Mr. Blanchet understands this. And every Wednesday, or this Wednesday, tomorrow, the 17th of June, there's the House of Commons will open for voting and short debate, because it's not the House of Commons full that's opening. It's just the COVID-19 committee, and they're spending money, and they need support of at least one of the minority parties. So Mr. Blanchet is signaling his support, or telling what he needs for it. He says, hello, the vote of the Bloc Québécois tomorrow will depend on your caucus and the government's response to our proposals. I allow myself to correct. The Bloc has all the financial means for an election. This issue is one of relevance. Looking forward. And this is translated from French to English, so I apologize that it's kind of difficult to understand. But Mr. Blanchet is signaling that he's not worried about bringing down the government, because he's got enough money in his war chest for an election. And the NDP aren't ready for an election. The Conservatives aren't ready for an election. I think they're one of their debates is on the 18th, and most people aren't expecting the government to fall tomorrow for this reason. So I think the NDP, and here's the reason I think the NDP are going to support this. The Global News is reporting yesterday, which is the 15th, today's the 16th, solution in the works for curb extension, Trudeau says. And basically he says, I want to reassure all Canadians who are receiving curb and who are looking for a job and want to make sure they will find a job between now and the end of the curb, that we will continue to be there to help them. We've said this from the very beginning, he said in French on Monday. And I scroll down to the bottom to the important part. For the NDP to support a massive government spending proposal due in the House of Commons on Wednesday, the party's leader said an extension to curb is a must. Jagmeet Singh said earlier Monday that he believes negotiations between the parties will avert a potential non-confidence vote. So that would result. So that's why I don't think anything's going to change. I think they're going to carry on, no problem. And not that I agree with it. I don't agree with it. I think this is irresponsible, and it's a lot of the other spending that is problematic, and I don't think there's an encouraging pathway to get off the curb. But I don't have the time to solve the government of Canada's problems, especially when they won't listen to me anyway. So I don't think what they're doing is correct, but I don't have an alternative ready to offer. Again, I think that they should probably be offering incentives to get off the curb. Anyway, both carrot and stick, right? You need both. Anyway, feds to consider non-traditional data as pandemic aid reworked, Morneau says. The federal government will look at how measures to revive the economy from its pandemic-induced freeze will impact women and men differently. Finance Minister Bill Morneau promises. This is, I think, purposely not giving us information that we want, and then watering down or giving a garden hose or a fire hose of information that we don't want, and is just ridiculous and has no place. Monetary is monetary, right? I think this is a waste of time. Back to this. He also suggests that federal officials will consider how any changes to economic safety net rushed into place for people whose jobs have been affected by COVID-19 could affect racialized communities in Canada. Morneau is working on a host of changes to federal programs that are now estimated to cost $153.7 billion as anti-contagion restrictions are rolled back to allow companies and workers to get back to business. I scroll down. Morneau told Senate Finance Committee in the afternoon that officials are working on various economic scenarios to determine how programs should adapt to give support where it's needed without throttling the recovery. In developing those next steps, Morneau said the government would consider traditional and creative economic measures that could fit into any eventual budgets. Most certainly, we will be looking at the typical data we look at, but we will also continue to try and look at other sources of data that are important, Morneau said. Do you realize that says very little? That doesn't say anything, okay? It's word salad. It's just words that don't mean much. Back to this. A good example is, obviously, we've taken an approach to looking at a gender disaggregated data to come up with approaches that have an impact on women differentially, and that, differentially? Yep. And that kind of approach will be something we'll consider for other parts of our society. Again, more like chopping people up into as many little groups as possible, right? It's not women and men, it's black versus white or black versus other races. It doesn't matter as long as you've got the division. Anyway, back to this. The pandemic's economic effects have been disproportionately felt by women and low-wage workers, and work is underway. You know what's funny? They declared low-wage workers essential, but they declared themselves not essential. We can work from home. We can work from home, guys. We don't have to go to work, right? Right? But, you know, the people who work at Walmart, oh, those people are heroes. Don't you wish we had leaders? It's so, right? Frustrating. Okay. And work is underway to better understand the impacts on race and visible minorities. Statistics Canada plans to collect information on race and visible minority status as part of its monthly jobs report, starting with the survey next month to provide insights on population of interest and assist in making evidence-based decisions. You know, I think that it's interesting. You can have a group of people who all agree, like 78% said, a True North poll recently, all want to stop to immigration until the pandemic is over, and then a review of immigration and bringing people in. When you have the population who agrees on that much, it's interesting when the government is saying we need to collect disaggregated data to see the impact on women and minority people before we can move on anything. So it seems like we're stuck chasing our tail. If they don't get the result they like, they'll go back and find data that finds them the result they like. We need better data from this group of people because we don't have enough data that tells us what they think. 100% of this group of people think this. Oh my goodness. It doesn't matter that they're like a tiny, minute, minuscule amount when compared to the cross-section of the whole country. It doesn't matter, right? They'll just report on it breathless. 100%, everybody agrees. Everybody agrees. And it's a position that you dislike. It's just like all the polls that they've been putting out, right? Like, Canadians want more immigration in the face of this. Canadians find each other horribly offensive and racist on a daily basis. Like, you read these polls and you're like, who are they polling? Like, what are you talking about? Here's an overview of Bill Blair lying about AR-15s. I'm not going to play the clip. It's 39 seconds. We burned way too much video clip time with Kevin Bacon. Ezra Levent is saying, I don't know about the U.S. case he weirdly threw in there. He threw in Sandy Hook. He said that AR-15s were used in Sandy Hook when all those kids died then. And why do you think that he threw that in? Do you think that he threw that in to tug at your heartstrings? He talked about Polytechnique. He talked about Quebec City and Moncton and other shootings that didn't have AR-15s. And Ezra Levent nails it. He says he just is straight up lying about the Canadian cases he references, which suggests his case isn't strong. 60 seconds on Google says he's lying about each one of them. So weird. Yeah, it is weird. It is weird, Ezra. Thanks for using my phrase. All right. The PM, CTV News is reporting, like, this is another, we're chasing our tails. We're chasing our tails. It doesn't matter if you've got a directive from the population, we want X. Everybody in Alberta wants X. It doesn't matter because they'll just find the data they want. PM wants to move very quickly on anti-racism initiatives, Minister says. I'll just read this article. Treasury Board President Jean-Yves Decloux says the Prime Minister wants to move very quickly to dismantle barriers that contribute to systemic racism. Could you please explain what you're talking about? Which barriers? What contribution to systemic racism? Can you define the systemic racism that you're talking about specifically, please? These news articles are very, very rich on inflammatory language, but light on like meaty data. It's meant to make you feel a certain way. Back to this. The government is making modest progress at diversifying the federal public service, but there's more work to do, especially in the senior ranks, Decloux told a media briefing Monday. More broadly, he said the government can and should help others remove barriers to progress for Canadians of different racial backgrounds. Decloux says it's about empowering everyone to see the obstacles that others are facing. Everybody's got to see the obstacles that others are facing. Not you. You're not facing any obstacles. You're white. But, others. Think for other people, not for yourself. Back to this. He rhymed off a list of areas including education, public safety, Indigenous relations, where advances in equity can be made. I'm surprised he wasn't like, policing. As elected officials and more generally as citizens, we do have both the ability and the responsibility to help, Decloux said. Prime Minister, but what happens when you're not helping? What happens when it's just a divisive wedge that everybody can see except for you? Back to this. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has already engaged his team to work very quickly and very efficiently in coming up with a way forward. Quickly and efficiently is definitely how I like my country-changing racial policies developed, right directly from the PMO with a very, very small group of people saying, this is what the laws should be. Let's get this out quick. Quick. That's the key. That's the first one. Quickly and efficiently, not carefully and well thought out. Quickly and efficiently. Let's roll this out ASAP. Can we do it tomorrow? Who cares what we break? Let's get this going. Back to this. The government has come under pressure to spell out what it is doing to counter discrimination and entrenched racism in federal agencies following the police killing of a black man, George Floyd, in the United States. They say this with a straight face. Back to this. And a spate of confrontations between police officers and Indigenous people, as well as racial minorities in Canada. Yeah. Yep. Just absolute propaganda trash. It is chasing our tails constantly to find the answer that the government wants to hear. And until they find the answer they want to hear, they're not going to act. They're not going to do anything. What's the problem with guns? They're definitely farmers and their AR-15s. We don't want to deal with illegal guns. We're not going to talk about illegal guns. We're just going to ban AR-15s. That's the solution to your illegal gun problem. Have you been paying attention to how much violence has been happening in major cities in Canada? It's gone up, not down. This is the craziest. Montreal police are investigating high school students' racist video. Montreal police are investigating this video.
Black, we don't like you. If you're dark black, we really don't like you. Bar 1 done. Bar 2.
This is a crime. This video is a crime. This is taking police time and effort and energy. And I was going like this because that's what, like, the video is kind of blurred and the soundtrack they're playing. But like, I remember doing this in grade 6. This is a crime. Which crimes were committed? They're in blackface, clearly. Like, you can see that in a couple of the images here. It's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, the face on right there. Right? They're in blackface. This is a crime. This is a crime. I think this is maybe an ill-advised TikTok, but it is certainly not a crime. Maybe if this was done during school time, you get suspended for this. But this wasn't even done during school time, right? Like, it is unbelievable that this is the kind of tale we're chasing in Canada. Police are investigating a video staged by two West Island girls where they wear blackface and act out a series of what their school board calls disturbing and patently racist scenes. The video was posted on social media early Monday, though the girls' classmates say it was made months, if not years ago. And while it's shocking, black parents who live in the same country as the girls say racism at local schools is frequent and very troubling. I mean, I don't know that this is a race. I don't know that this is a crime to post these videos. I don't know that any crimes were committed. Maybe the school might have something to say, but I think it's really troubling when police are cracking down on these kind of things. And I mean, like, can you imagine if like, you think your amazing Star Wars thing is amazing, and then you post it online and find out that it's not, and then, like, you learned your lesson. Can you imagine if the police show up to tell you that it's not so okay? You've broken some thought crimes, sir. Here's well, how many more do I have? Oh yeah, that's it. This is the last little bit. On March 15th, this is not me, this is Christina, the CCWW Foundation. And she says, on March 15th, 2020, the day Justin Trudeau told Canadians to go home and stay home, there was only 39 active coronavirus cases. June 15th, 2020, Alberta relaunches with 440 active coronavirus cases. Why the lockdown with only 39 active cases, reopening with 440 active cases? It does. It defies reason. And I've got this Drew Carey clip because my use of Footloose will inevitably demonetize this video, so why not go for the gold? And here's Drew Carey to let us know exactly how much the rules matter and who's making them up, because I mean, the rules don't matter. And well, here you go, Drew.
That's right, the points don't matter, just like the word international in International House of Pancakes. The points are just like the sports in the Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition. That's right, the points are like what your girlfriend says while the game is on.
They just don't matter. The rules don't matter. It's just crazy. And we'll finish it off with some dancing. You got to go Footloose. And I'll dare you. You can't not dance when you hear this song, right? It's a good song. Oh, isn't that good play? Oh, there we go. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. I'll be recording today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Tomorrow's Wednesday. And have a wonderful, wonderful day.